Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. This video is my review of the new Assault on the Slave Lords quest pack. For those of you who don't know, just a couple weeks ago we got this new pack incorporated into DDO in update 32. It is the third classic pen and paper module to be put into the game, the first two being Haunted Halls and Temple of Elemental Evil. We've seen this as a trend that players like and will probably continue into the future, as we've gotten announcements just recently that we'll be seeing more classic modules in the future. So let's go ahead and start by giving you a general overview of what I want to accomplish in this review and what the quest series is. So the main reason I make these videos is because I know some of my listeners don't play the game regularly. They might play once a month, or they might be on a break from DDO, or maybe they're players who just haven't gotten around to trying out the new content. So this review hopefully will give you a better indication of whether you want to buy this pack or not, whether it's worth your time. And as always in my review videos, I strive to be as fair, reasonable, and also blunt and honest as possible. Let's go ahead and get started with quest design. Now, these quests are all located in the Haunted Halls. There are 3 parts to this quest series, which reflect the different parts of the classic pen and paper module. Now, there are, I believe, 4 parts in the pen and paper module, but for various reasons, only 3 of them were brought into DDO. As far as length goes, the quests are fairly long. Part 2, from my experiences, being the longest. If you're going somewhat quickly in a group, you can probably get each part done between 15 and 20 minutes, something like that. If you're going somewhat fast, if you go slower, it might take longer than that. It might take you more like an hour and a half to get through the whole quest pack. Of course, that depends also on which difficulty level you choose. There's a lot of good things about these quests. They have a nice variety of mobs. I really did like that. You'll see everything from orcs to a lot of human enemies. You'll also see mainstays like kobolds. You'll see oozes. You'll see rust monsters. You'll see umber hulks. You'll see gelatinous cubes, and many, many more. Another good thing about these quests is there are a lot of traps. If you're someone who enjoys avoiding traps, disabling traps, if you just enjoy that element in your quests, these are good quests for you. Especially your rogue types, you'll have a lot to do in here. There's wall traps, there's floor traps, and a lot of other dangers you'll find and have to deal with. These quests are all somewhat closed in. You'll find yourself winding in and out of a lot of hallways. There are a few sort of open spaces. In part 3 there's sort of a section where you go through a town, and in part 2 there's a section where you go underground. But for most of the quest, you'll be finding yourself weaving in and out of hallways. The quests, I find, as far as enjoyment, I find them a little bit repetitive if I have to get into a more negative or critical aspect of the quests. I think that there's a lot of repetition here in terms of hack and slash. If you like killing mobs, these are good quests for you. But for me personally, I felt like they need to incorporate more mechanics and more things into the quest rather than just a lot of hack and slash. Another thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of repeated mechanics, particularly the lever mechanic. I feel that was repeated too many times. So for me, the quests, because they're almost all hack and slash, feel a bit drawn out. Now, they're still enjoyable quests, but for me, the quest design could have been better, and I will give the quest design a B-. Let's go ahead and talk about loot. Now, loot is where I think the developers hit the ball out of the park with this pack. The loot is excellent, both in design and in stats. There's a great mix of loot here. There's solid named loot that drops in the chest at the end of each quest, and it's very good loot. There's a lot of really good pieces of loot you'll find here. If you want to check out more specifics about the loot, I would urge you to watch my loot review video, which you can find in the description below. There, in addition to being a lot of good named items, there's a whole slaver's crafting system in this quest pack, and it says this is very, very good loot, and it's the main quote-unquote grind of this pack. As you venture through the 3 parts, you'll find ingredients scattered throughout the chest. They aren't all at the end. These ingredients are distributed fairly evenly through the dungeons in a variety of different chests. The ingredient drop rates are pretty reasonable and fair on Elite and Hard. Now on Normal, I feel the drop rates are a bit low. And this is referring to Legendary, not Heroic. In Heroic, I actually have not personally run this review. Again, I should have said this at the beginning, but this is a review that's focused on the Legendary pack, because this is more of in-game content. Okay, the normal drop rates, I feel, are a bit too low. You'll get about 9, somewhere between 8 to 9 about per chest on Elite, around 6 to 7 on Hard, and on Normal you're typically getting 1 ingredient per chest. So it's content that you're going to want to run on the higher difficulties. Overall, the loot is excellent because the craftable system really encourages you to play these quests long term, and it's loot that is very well designed, and we've seen some really cool mechanics brought into the game with this loot. There are 3 pieces of base craftable items, and each of these 3 base items can be worn in 2 different slots. So there's a lot of flexibility here, and there's a ton of flexibility in the crafting. You can put all kinds of different stats and bonuses on this loot, and it's very much serves as a way to tie up your gear set. Any missing effects you can't seem to fit in other slots, you can definitely use this loot for that. And there's also the number of effects you can put on each item is quite staggering. There are 4 different slots that you can craft effects onto, and there's also mythic bonuses and set bonuses. So there's a lot to explore here with the loot, and it's definitely a pack you'll want to plan out exactly which gear you'll want to make before you pick your ingredients when it comes to your end rewards and quests, because in addition to ingredients dropping in chests, you also get your choice of end rewards at the quest completion end reward list, and that's something you get to choose once every time you complete the chain. So overall, I give the loot in this pack an A+. I think it was excellent design, and the grind is fair, and it gives you a reason to log into DDO with your capped character, and it gives DDO an endgame that I think it desperately needed. Next, let's talk about difficulty. And this is a contentious topic, and it's one that's been talked a lot about on the forums. The bottom line with the difficulty and how appropriate it is for these quests is it depends a lot on your build. If you are someone who runs maybe in a static group with friends, maybe you like to play casually, the difficulties are going to be sufficient for you. Or say you like to run characters who are not on what many would consider the top tier builds in the game, you're probably going to have enough difficulty. But if you're someone who's a min-maxer and you like to run a top builds, kind of your best classes in the game, you're probably not going to find enough difficulty here. From my experiences, and I've run these quests on every single difficulty level in Legendary except for Casual, and I've run the pack probably a little over 10 times. From my experiences, the difficulty on Epic Elite is not as high as it should be. I've not had any problems completing on the highest difficulty in public groups. And from what I've read on the forums, that tends to be kind of an experience shared by a lot of players. Now, I'm not saying all players. There's a lot of players who will find sufficient challenge on Epic Elite. For me personally, I run a Cleric, which is one of the weaker classes in the game. So I find if I'm trying to solo that the Elite difficulty is too hard for me. But I know that's not the case for your players who are running the kind of your top of the line builds. Now, another thing to note is that certain classes will excel in this pack more than others. The mobs are almost all fleshy, so your characters that excel in stunning and holding do extremely well here and help speed up the quest considerably. The mobs also appear mostly in close-knit groups of large mobs. So you might come to a room and there might be 5 to 7 mobs all together in a group. They're not very spread out. They're in closely packed groups. So because of that, your area of effect damage casters do extremely well in these quests because they can kind of go in, blast all the enemies, and get the HP of those mobs down very quickly. So overall, I'm going to give the difficulty a B. I think that for a lot of players, they're going to have enough difficulty here, but I find that the top difficulties leave a little bit to be desired, and I feel like Elite should be a little bit harder than it is. So in summary, it's a pretty good pack. The quest design is decent. I think the quests could have been better designed. They're a little bit drawn out, a little bit repetitive, but overall these are quests that are enjoyable enough to where you want to run them over and over and it won't bother you too much. The loot is excellent. I think this is some of the best loot the developers have brought into the game in a long time. It's loot that is you're going to definitely want to farm out, and it's loot that I think is going to stand the test of time because just how flexible it is. In comparison to other classic DDO modules or classic D&D modules that have been brought into DDO, I think this module is straight in the middle. I don't think it's as good as Haunted Halls, but I think it's better than Temple and definitely has less flaws than the Temple of Elemental Evil had. It's a pack you'll definitely want to buy if you're at level 30 and you want something to do at cap. This is in game right now. Overall, I give the pack a B+, and I recommend you buy it. Even if you don't love the quests, they're great for the loot, and I think the quests and the content is good enough to where you'll enjoy farming it. So guys, that's all for my review of the Slave Lord series. Please comment below and let me know what you think. I like reading comments and I like hearing other people's opinions. That's going to be it for this video. You all have a good one.